Hello fellow fraggers, my name is Frag himself, and today I will give you my top 10 best attack AI cards. These are the cards that will follow your attack commands, go on bunkers, and give you some frags in the other side of the field. As usual, this list is based on my opinion, but I guarantee you that you will find success using some of the cards I've mentioned in your deck. These types of cards are important because with the right hands, you can deal a lot more bunker damage in a game and control the game a lot more with the pressure that they will cause on your opponent. Therefore, I consider attack cards, wild cards, and center cards as attack AI. Obviously, since their AI is fundamentally different, attack cards will tend to go on bunkers more, wild cards sort of do whatever they want, and centers stay in the middle. So to fill in the attack role, attack cards will be much better because they will go on bunkers naturally and you're not going to have to use your attack commands. That being said, center and wild cards can also be very good. You just need to make sure that they're not hanging around in the back or in the center of the map and really use your attack commands. In my opinion, the things that matter the most in attack AI cards are the damage that they can deal on bunkers with their main fire, how well they use their ultimate ability, their HP or how tanky they are, and their overall ability to frag opponents. And you will see a lot of these points recurring in this list. So with all of that said, let's get into our top 10. In number 10 we have Darius. Now that's a card I did not expect to put in this list. I usually use him as a main, but when I really took a look at him for this video, I realized that he's actually a really solid AI card. He's obviously very new to the game, but he has very solid stats. He has decent speed, good damage, and very nice HP. All of these things carry to his AI, and they make Darius hard to deal with as AI. His AI is going to be good at using his ultimate ability, so he's going to get some frags. He's also good on bunker because his main fire deals a really nice amount of damage on bunkers. But obviously, he doesn't have any kind of crazy thing about him that make him like super OP with AI. He's just, honestly, above average but not crazy good, so that's why he's in number 10. In number 9 we have BiBi. Now that's a card that used to be the best card in Frag back in BiBi meta. But BiBi is definitely still good and probably a card that I should talk about a little more on this channel. He has very nice stats, obviously, similar to Darius in a way, with damage and speed. His ult though is way better than Darius, at least for AI. Sometimes he's going to be able to heal and speed up a huge push, at least when he uses it. He would be a lot higher though if he knew how to use it and when to use it. But maybe he does it like 30% of the time, and that can be a lifesaver for your main and your other AI cards. BiBi might be the most underplayed attack AI card in the game right now. Unfortunately though, most of the time he's pretty easy to get rid of, so you somewhat need to protect him, but if he gets to bunkers, he's going to be pretty good. We're kind of getting into the meta AI cards, I would say right now, or at least the more commonly used AI cards. In number 8 we have Hunter. Hunter has really good damage with his main fire, so he's really good if he gets to bunkers. And he's pretty good at getting to bunkers as well. He's got nice speed, and his ultimate ability works really well with his AI. He is able to use it when he is in trouble, and he gets tons of frags in the right situations. It creates a huge cylinder of damage around him, and he takes less damage, so it's amazing and he uses it well. However, he gets points off for a small HP, and his center AI is not really autonomous. You're gonna have to use your attack commands a lot with him. In number 7 we have our first attack card on this list, and this is Cipher. Cipher is going to be very effective and annoying as an AI card. He's got good damage with his main fire, so he's a pretty decent card on bunkers, and since he's an attack card, he will go on bunkers naturally and definitely not be as hard to take care of as some of the previous wild cards and center cards. And just like a lot of good AI cards, his ultimate ability is why I like him. It creates a huge bubble around him that increases the damage enemies take when they are in it. it also slows them down and they can't use their ultimate ability. So this does two things. First of all, if you hang around your Cipher and he uses his ultimate ability, you will be able to deal more damage on your opponent. That's a huge bonus and it can save you a lot of time. It can also harm your opponent, preventing them from using their ultimate ability and having a huge deficit in their one-on-one scenarios, and they will have a lot more trouble playing the game when they're trapped in Cipher's bubble. However though, he's overall pretty easy to get rid of when he's unprotected, so that's why he's just in number 7. In number 6 we have Takeshi. Now that's a card that doesn't get too much love, and honestly he doesn't deserve it, but yeah, Takeshi definitely deserves to be in this list. He's got many good things with his AI. First of all, his main fire and speed is decent, and honestly that's perfectly fine to have a good AI card. He's also tanky, so he's going to be hard to get rid of, and you're gonna have to spend some time dealing damage to him. And his AI is actually pretty good with his ultimate ability, and he's killer with it. It's unpredictable as hell. Sometimes he uses it, sometimes not, and honestly that makes me super afraid to go near his AI. A lot of times he's just a ticking time bomb, and his AI actually masters his ultimate ability pretty well. He doesn't always know where to move, but if you're close enough to him, he's going to get rid of you pretty quickly, so be careful about that. However, he's a wild card, so he's not focused on bunkers that much, so you're going to have to use your attack commands a lot. In number 5, we have another tank in our list, and that's Tankbot. You're gonna start to see a lot more tanks in the top spots, because obviously I put a lot of value on tankiness with AI. But Tankbot is actually not very played for his AI. There's no reason why he wouldn't be good. He's one of the best AI cards on bunkers, period. I mean, just with damage overall. Since Volcano's nerf, I think he's a card that deals the biggest amount of damage on bunkers. He also has a good ult that helps him out in bad situation, and he uses it pretty well. I don't want to say he uses it very well, but you know, sometimes he's able to get some frags with it, and sometimes even escape some situations. But overall, in my opinion, just his tankiness and damage with his main fire is all you need to have a really good AI card and super dangerous on bunkers. In number 4 we have Hannibal. Again, another tank, but there's something special about Hannibal. He's going to be our first close range slayer. And close range slayers, I don't think I'm gonna say this enough, but they are definitely the best types of cards for AI. And there's only one reason for that. It makes it much easier to use your main fire with AI. I haven't talked about this yet, but since usually AI is all full with main fire, I mean all full at getting frags, close range slayers are going to have a much easier time using their main fire and therefore getting frags. It's a huge bonus because as they will get more frags, they will help you control the map a lot. After playing frag for a while, you kind of get used to how AI uses their main fire, and you can usually spin around them and not take any damage. But that doesn't work with close range slayers. You really have to be more careful about close range slayers in frag. But coming back to Hannibal, he's going to be our lowest close range slayer in this list, and that's because he's not too great with damage. That makes him not too good on bunkers, and even if you get hit with his main fire, you can usually escape it pretty easily and you won't have taken too much damage. But still, he's dangerous to approach, he's tanky so he's hard to deal with, and he's consistent on bunkers. Also, he's an attack card, so he will go on bunkers very easily. But again, only weakness in my opinion is his damage, so he's going in 4th place. Our third best AI offensive card on this list is Ronin. I think if I did a poll, he would probably be the number 1 picked card for best AI offensive in the game. But I still want to put him in number 3. But I mean, look, he's undeniably good. He's very good at using his ult. I think the number 1 thing that makes him the most frightening AI card maybe is how good he is with his ultimate ability. It's crazy. He uses it, I would say, 100% of the time he needs to, and he's even good at chasing you around and getting into position to using his ultimate ability. And you know, it deals a ton of damage. What he's going to do is use his main fire once and then use his ultimate ability and deal something like 300 damage. So he's going to get a lot of frags with it, and he deals a ton of damage. Obviously, he also does consistent damage on bunkers, and he gets there very fast because he's a fast card. He has low HP though, and since he's a wild card, he needs attack commands. But since he's a close range player, he's going to do a lot of frags, and he's going to help you a lot for map control. He might be the AI that kills the most cards in the game, I'm not kidding, but since he has low HP, he's not going to get into number 1 because with your main, you're usually not going to have a tough time getting rid of his AI. In number 2 we have RedShadow. This guy is very new in Frag, but clearly we see a lot of people using him, and that's very understandable. He's got good damage and an insane amount of HP. He kind of fills in the role of Ronin's AI, but he's also tanky. His AI works well with his ultimate ability. I would say he's not as good with his ultimate ability and he's slower than Ronin, but in my opinion he makes up for it in HP and how hard he is to get rid of. He's an attack card, so he's also going to go on bunkers a little more often and he's gonna stay there more consistently. But yeah, he's just a really solid AI card, so that's why he's in number 2. And before we get into number 1, which I think you know who it is, we're gonna do honorable mentions. And the first one I want to talk about is Cybercop. Cybercop is tanky, he's got decent damage with his main fire, and his jail can do a lot of damage when he places it correctly. Problem is, if you want the jail to be placed properly, you usually need to do it yourself, and that takes time. But overall though, Cybercop is a solid card, and usually a card that I use as a tank, so you should at least definitely try him out a few times. And in number 2 we have Big Paku. Big Paku is one of the first cards you get playing Frag, and he's definitely a card that you can use for a long time, and I would even say that you can use him indefinitely because he's almost meta. The only problem is his damage is kind of bad, but he's good with his ultimate ability with AI, and he's also tanky, so he's going to be able to stay on bunkers for a long time. And our number 3 and 4 for honorable mentions is Fragment and Hades. They both use their ult pretty well. Fragment can deal a ton of damage in a short period of time, and Hades is even more damage, but in long term, and they both have pretty okay stats, okay HP, okay speed, and they're pretty good with their main fire, especially Hades that sometimes can be very surprising with it. And with all of that said, I won't surprise you when I say number 1 attack AI card is Lucha. Lucha has been, in my opinion, the best AI card for a while in Frag for attack. And it's not because of anything crazy he does, he's just a simple design that works well. He's got a good main fire and an insane amount of HP. Since he's a close range slayer, he chases enemies around, and he usually also can get a lot of frags at the same time, but I would say his primary use is to go on bunkers and deal damage. And he really gets carried by how tanky he is. Since he's the tankiest card in the game, it takes a super long time to get rid of. Sometimes it takes over 10 seconds just to get rid of a Lucha, and that's a huge amount of time that you can use to go and push bunkers or destroy your opponent's push. He single-handedly can push on bunkers because of how much HP he has. His ultimate ability is also pretty good. Sometimes he's gonna use it to catch up to opponents, and as said before, he can get a decent amount of frags with his main fire because he's actually pretty good at using his main fire, all things considered. Lucha is probably the most consistent AI card in the game because you put him in your deck and you know what he is gonna do. He's gonna push on bunkers, he's gonna stay alive for a long time, and he's gonna at least give you a little bit of bunker damage and a huge amount of map control, taking your opponent's time and giving you a huge lead at the end of the game. And that's it. That's really all I wanted to say for Attack AI. If you want more information about Attack AI, you can go and look at my previous Attack AI tier list I've done a while ago. Obviously, things have changed in Frags, so some of the information might not be 100% accurate, but I think it's gonna give you a good idea of which cards are good and which cards are not too good with AI. And you will also probably see some of the top cards I've just mentioned here also talked about in this video, and probably will be in the top tiers as well. As usual with these kinds of videos, if you have any comments you want to tell me, things to add, or even disagreements, I'm super open to them, so go in the comments and tell me what you think. Which cards with AI work for you when you want to push? I'm also curious about that because I don't use every single AI card in the game, and I've kind of been using the same AI cards since a few months. So give me some suggestions for cards that I haven't mentioned today. And with all of that said, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.